Hello, I'm Eric Barnes, CEO of the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us for this live Ask Me Anything. Appreciate everyone who is here, being here, and appreciate people who were submitting questions in advance. We'll go through as many questions as we can get to in the next hour or so. You can also ask questions if you're watching on YouTube, if you click on the little YouTube icon in the bottom left or bottom right and go over to YouTube, there's a chat function either below or to the right of the video, and you can ask questions there. You can also, if you go into the article in which this video is embedded, there's a link to just submit questions here, and those questions will get to me. Those questions will get to me by Danielle Smith, who is our social media manager, who we may pop up here or we may not. I'm not quite sure, but you'll see her from time to time. She may actually help with answering some of these questions and certainly feeding questions over to me. I see we just set our alert out, so I'm gonna talk for another second here as other folks join. We will, by the way, if you miss any today, or you just think it's so brilliant and interesting that you want to share it with friends, the recording of this will go on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find that through this article. So you can share it with others, and we do appreciate that. We are at the Daily Memphian coming up on our 4-year anniversary since launch, September 18. 2018 is when we launched. We were actually formed in May of 2018, but it's been 4 years, and we appreciate everyone who subscribed, everyone who reads. It's been kind of a remarkable run, given all the work that everybody around here has done, and board and subscribers and advertisers, sponsors, donors. So it's been pretty incredible. We are, and this is not an ego thing, we are really one of the largest in the country in this whole crisis that is local news, of the cuts in local journalism. Y'all have probably read my columns before, but it's worth repeating that, in the last 10, 20 years, many newsrooms have seen cuts in the 90% of their staff. It's something like 30 to 35 local journalists have lost their jobs in the last 20 years. Something like 2,000 to 2,500 newspapers have shut down completely. And there are about 2,000, maybe more communities in the country that really have no dedicated local news source. And so that is why we launched, not for any other reason than we felt it was important that Memphis have a truly locally based, in the community news site. I still call it a newspaper, by the way, that was dedicated to Memphis in all its complexity. And so again, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for supporting. We really do appreciate it. I'll go ahead and start with some of the questions. And obviously, given the timing of this, Memphis has gone through a trauma. I think the whole community has, in the sense of a series of crimes, and on the backdrop of a really severe increase in violent crime. And so there were some of the questions that came through is, what role does the media play in curbing, or even on the other side, exacerbating local crime rates, and how do we decide what crimes to cover? And going back to our beginnings, when we started, I would speak to any group who would ask me, and so would Andy Cates, my friend, and one of the co-founders of this place, and now our board chair. Jeff Calkins did a lot of speaking. Others did a lot of speaking at various events before we launched. And one of the things we talk about was what we're going to cover and what we weren't going to cover. And one of those things we said we weren't going to cover was last night's crime. And inevitably, I mean, universally, the reaction to that, whatever I was, a big group, a small group, young, old, black, whites, whatever end of the spectrum of political spectrum, everyone would clap, everyone would nod, everyone would say thank you. And I would go on and say, but we are going to cover crime, and we're going to cover trends, we're going to cover solutions, we're going to try to hold local people accountable. We have ended up covering, over the course of the 4 years, it's been very much a work in progress, and and imperfectly so, of what incidents of crime we cover. We have defaulted to covering more and more because of the significance of it, because of the problem that we have in this community. And this is when I also always note that it's a problem that the whole country has. But we are here, and we're focused on the crime problem in Memphis. So we've we cover those crimes that somehow really seem to capture more people's attention. And that's, it's a harsh reality, because, there are on average about 3 murders a week in Memphis, and we don't have the resources to cover all of them. In recent months, we've covered people, the Reverend Arturo Eason Williams, who was, tragically killed, a beloved figure in her community and her church community. Yvonne Nelson, who's an activist, was killed in Raleigh. And obviously the abduction and the kind of the police manhunt and all that went into the Eliza Fletcher abduction and murder, and then certainly the shooting spree. And so it's a difficult balance. And I always appreciate it on everything we do. People let me know, they email me, they see me on the street and they say, hey, I think you don't cover enough of this and you should cover more of that. And crime is one of those. We start with the most difficult topic today, but it's one of those that is really difficult to figure out which incidents of crime we cover. But we are certainly very focused on accountability. And, even today, Otis Sanford had a really powerful column. Whether you're left, right, or center, or what your politics are, you should read Otis's column. It is calling out leaders in criminal justice who failed not just Eliza Fletcher by any means. They failed a woman who was, accused of being involved in a terrible act a year ago. They failed a whole lot of people. And that's part of our job, is to hold government leaders accountable. It's not to vilify them. It's not to tear them down, but to say, hey, this is a failure, and people want better and people expect better. And that extends to other kind of coverage we've done. We've obviously done some pretty difficult coverage of the school system, Memphis Shelby County Schools lately, that was in part leading to the resignation of Joris Ray, and a culture there that was not good and not what it needed to be. So sometimes we do those hard things. I remember when we launched, there were a lot of people, I guess, because we're 4 years from an anniversary almost, a lot of people who really thought we would be purely positive, purely, celebrating Memphis. And I'm a Memphian. It's my adopted home. We do celebrate Memphis, and we do not hesitate to shine a bright light on really wonderful and successful and cool and interesting and fun things that happen here. And we'll continue to do that even as we focus on crime. But, we have to cover the whole of the community, good and bad. And so that's how we approach crime. And that's, I think, for many people, probably a kind of imperfect answer. But that's the approach we try to take. There are also questions that I kind of morphed into about accountability. And that is a big part of what we try to do, is to say, hey, politician X promised a thing. Did they get that done? Right? Now, I think sometimes when people say accountable, what they want is for us to take a particular opinion and say, you're not doing it the way I want. And that's where opinion comes in. And opinion's a big part of what we do in terms of guest columns and our regular columns. And that leads to one question that somebody submitted and that I get all the time. And it's a very fair question. Our regular columnists tend to be very left of center, not exclusively. I mean, Otis's column today is a great example of that. But by and large, there's no jumping around that Otis Sanford and Dan Conaway, who are regular columnists for us, lean to the left. And we haven't had a consistent voice that's more right of center. We think we're on track to fix that. We've had more guest column ad hoc kind of submissions that are more on that side of the political spectrum, or come from that side of the political spectrum. But we may have gotten lost in the fray because obviously so much coverage lately was about the two big crime incidents. But Christina Garner, who is a former executive director of the local Republican Party, has submitted is now a columnist for us, hopefully on a very regular basis as we get that going. And there's another woman who'll be doing more kind of right of center, sort of more slice of life kind of perspectives on Memphis and so on. And we hope to get her going soon. And as we say, and we try to put on most, if not all of our opinion pieces, everyone should email me if you have thoughts on this, if you want to talk about a column, if you know someone who'd be a great columnist on any side of an issue, on any side. We really do want that. We do not want to, it is not the mission of the Daily Memphian to reflect one political point of view. And I do know, and I get it all the time, and there's no running from it, and I don't need to run from it, that we're not quite where we need to be on that. And that is a question people ask all the time, and certainly somebody submitted. Danielle, I'm gonna bring you in here for the first time. I'll switch over to you. What other, again, Danielle Smith, if you're joining late, is our social media manager who's helping me manage all the questions coming in and everything today. Oh, there you are. I think you're muted. What other questions have come in since we started? We had a bunch that were submitted beforehand, but any questions since we got started?
One that's come in that is definitely something we hear a lot about, is just related to why do certain stories allow for comments and other stories don't? And it seems to be that, in particular with crime, there have been a lot where you can't comment.
Yeah. So the comments are have been a real challenge. We really do value comments. But that's another thing that's evolved over time. When we originally launched, we had comments were a Facebook plugin that was just at the bottom. It's a technical term, you don't plug in, but anyway, a super technical term, plugin. Sorry. But we use Facebook for those comments. That didn't quite work right. We switched to a third party called Disqus, doesn't matter. And just anyone could comment on any story. And what we didn't like about that was that it allowed for anonymous commenting. You know, you could be, Jane Smith 1234 and say whatever you wanted. And unfortunately, and it's a very small percentage, there's just, the 5 to 10% rules in place where there's just a certain amount of people who choose to make really inappropriate comments. They're personally insulting to other people. They're spouting, not opinion is opinion, but misinformation, and even sometimes just really, really inappropriate misinformation that, hey, that's not true. And we can't fact check everything. So I can't remember, sometime in COVID, we took comments down for a bit to retool them technically so that they were tied to your subscription. So you have to be a subscriber in order to comment. And by being a subscriber, that means your real name has to be displayed on your comment. So we didn't feel it was appropriate for people to do anonymous commenting on our site. That can be done on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, fine. That's not we try to moderate that stuff. That's not our platform. Then we also put in place filters that try to catch, swear words and just inappropriate stuff, and they're imperfect. If anything, they catch stuff that's perfectly reasonable for some strange word or some strange phrase. And so we try to catch those and say, oh, there's no reason, because people email me and say, why did my comment get, caught in the filter? What's going on? And I'll go look at it, and I literally have no idea. I mean, there is not a conspiracy. I joke with people, this is just humans who live in Memphis trying to do our best. And so, but the other thing that gets to is comments. We don't have the staff to moderate with real live humans like me and Danielle and others to moderate comments 24/7. And on some stories, the comments and crime stories, particularly breaking crime stories, we just can't allow misinformation and rumor and accusations to be on the site. It's not responsible. And there's just no way we can reasonably moderate those comments in real time. People are reading the stories 24/7. They're commenting 24/7. On most stories, that's fine. It's not about censoring an opinion, or a point of view. It's about misinformation, wildly to somewhat inappropriate language and tone, and it's about insults of other people. It's about sharing of information that shouldn't be shared. This is a small town that can involve, well, I know where somebody went to school or who they know or where they live. We just can't let that be on the site. It's irresponsible. That is 5 to 10%. It is a small percentage of the comments we would get because, I started this by saying what happened in the last 10 days with the with the shooting spree and with Eliza Fletcher, but on top of all these other, this violent crime around the city, people want to pour out their emotions and their feelings and their opinions about how that should be fixed. And 90% of that is absolutely fine. And I wish we could just have that 90% on the site. We can't. What we have done is increasingly turn the comments on the crime related issues right now on opinion pieces, because if we're publishing someone's opinion, we feel it's fine for subscribers to give their opinion relative to that guest column or columnist opinion. And we try to moderate those. We will, I think, eventually get back to turning comments on all the stories related to these two incidents and other incidents. But it's an unfortunate reality, that the small percentage of people, and it really is a small percentage of people, are making it untenable in those kind of very heated situations. And around the Dobbs decision, the Roe v. Wade decision, we turned comments off. We tried to moderate them as best we could. It just got to be too much in the heat of that conversation. It was not about shutting down one point of view or another. It just was too much, and it was too heated, and it was too ugly from this small percentage of people. there's a question that somebody put in before we started on comments. Would we ever consider restricting reader comments? There are a few commenters who dominate the comments, always negative, particularly regarding Memphis. I mean, I don't see us putting a restriction that people can only comment so much or some certain times of the day. If people want to be negative about Memphis, that's their choice. They've subscribed. That's an opinion. And I think we reflect opinion. It's not my opinion. That doesn't matter. Right. And there's often a lot of sort of good, healthy debate among other commenters saying, well, I disagree with you. And there are lots of conversations in there. I hear when in that period of time when we turn comments off for, I think it ended up being 3 or 4 months, it's funny how many people I heard from who said, I've never commented, but I used to think I hated the comments. And some days I do hate the comments, but I really want you to turn the comments back on. I had many, many people say that to me. And I know other people around here did, because they liked the conversation's important around the things we write, whether that's a fun show at the Shell, or that's an incredibly difficult, situation. So we're not in the mood. We're not intending to restrict them. We're just trying to manage them as best we can with, with limited resources. So Danielle, other stuff that I might have missed, maybe, and I should tell people too, I'm sorry, now I'm going to interrupt you, Danielle, I apologize. People can submit questions right now. If you click on the video that where my head is talking, if you click on the YouTube logo, it'll take you over to YouTube, and there's a chat section either to the right or below the video. You can put a question in there. Or within the article where this is embedded on the Daily Memphian site, there's a link, and that will open up a form that will go right to Danielle Smith, our social media manager, and she'll get that question to me. So Danielle, other questions that have come up?
Well, we've been talking about coverage topics. So I wanted to just ask, what we hear a lot from people is just, why don't we have more arts and culture coverage?
Yeah, again, I'm in this mood of the anniversary and the 4 years, so everything's going to be a 4-year answer. I'll try not to do that, but the short answer is we are expanding our arts and culture coverage. We've added more freelancers, and we hope to have secured some funding and just a new plan to expand arts and culture pretty substantially over the next going into 2023. So we had hoped to do that at the beginning of 2020. And then COVID happened, and there wasn't any arts and culture particularly to talk about. So I think it's been something we really wanted. We hear it all the time, and we are bit by bit expanding that. We've added an events calendar that people can submit to, and so this is a city of immense, arts and culture and music and museums and all that. We're trying to put more and more light on that, and we will continue to do that. One small thing, and I think this was a question, and Danielle can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I get it all the time, is, there are people who would love for us to have like a theater critic or a music critic or an art critic, kind of the old school way that newspapers used to have. It's very unlikely we'll do that. I want to say that. What we're going to mostly do is preview events, preview things that are coming. And some of that just comes from, it's just a pragmatic thing of, in talking to all the arts organizations around here, they overwhelmingly want us and all news outlets to preview what they're doing. An exhibit at a museum is different, maybe because it's going to be there for 6 months, but everything else, it's a one-off kind of performance. They want people to attend, and I get that. So what we tend to do is, again, with this events calendar that we're growing, and you can see it in the navigation on the Daily Memphian site. And then the freelance coverage and the staff coverage we do, it's about it's about previewing and talking about, or maybe, this person did this 2 years ago, they're back in town to do this, that kind of thing. I should say too, if you're not already subscribed, if you're interested in arts and culture and you're not subscribed, if you go to dailymemphian.com/email, I think that's the right address. You can sign up for the to-do list, which comes out every week, which is not meant to be a comprehensive list of things to do, but it is the staff, here, all kinds of staff, Jasmine and Elle and Chris Harrington and others, Jennifer Biggs, contribute various events that are happening every week. And so again, go to the to-do list on the Daily Memphian site and sign up for that. And that will give you more than I think sometimes people notice we do, because it isn't the biggest coverage area. On a personal level, I wish we did way more, but we're getting there.
Could I add a little plug, Eric?
Yes, please.
So we definitely have heard this with arts and culture. You might remember, as our subscribers, we sent out a survey of just what kind of coverage that you all wanted to have. And something that I definitely see on the social side of things is the readership on our arts and culture coverage can be lower sometimes. And obviously, arts and culture is a broad term. Not
Yeah.
everybody like every genre of music or every type of play and so on and so forth. But just a little social media plug, when you see those articles, or if you really like some of those arts and culture articles, share them to your friends, like get the word out, because we do have coverage, and unfortunately it's oftentimes not read, and it's pushed but it's not read. And so we're trying to find the gap of what is it that draws people in to read the coverage that we have, because we do want to expand it. So thanks for all those shares, guys.
Yeah. And we do surveys and we do all that. Yeah, that's a great point, Danielle. And we do surveys of what people want, and we try to capture that. So yes, absolutely. Another question about, I'm just sorry here. Well, there's some interrelated questions about kind of how we operate and how we post and send news. So one question was, what is the structure of the Daily Memphian and the reporters? So the Daily Memphian has about 50, we're coming up on 55 employees, something like that. We're budgeted this year to go to 43 in the newsroom. That's mostly what people are focused on, but it's important to note that there are all these other people outside the newsroom, me and Danielle, who, are kind of more, actually, Danielle and I are obviously very engaged in the editorial at all times, but are technically outside the newsroom in that sort of sense, and advertising people and marketing people and business people and all the technology that goes in behind this and so on. But the newsroom is right now, I think we've got about 38 people on staff. We've got openings for a neighborhood reporter. We've got opening a DeSoto County reporter. We just actually, I can't announce who, but we hired a really excellent Metro editor who'll be joining as our Metro editor goes into overseeing enterprise, and another Metro reporter, I think, that we're hiring for right now. So we're hiring, we're trying to grow to get to that 43 of the newsroom itself. So if we're at 4, call it rounded off to 40 people, in round numbers, that'll be about 25, a little less than 20 to 25 reporters. Then there are editors. So there's a sports editor, a Metro editor, business and managing editor. There's I'm drawing a blank, a neighborhood and suburbs editor, who are over the various reporters in their groups. And then there's a whole digital desk that is almost like in the old school way, we would say the layout people. That really diminishes what they do, because not there's anything wrong with layout people, but they do a lot more than that. But all the stories are, I think this is what this person's getting at is, and people do ask me about this, people write their stories. Maybe they're over at FedEx Forum, or they're at a Germantown alderman meeting, and they write that, or they're in a coffee shop. There's a lot of coffee shop writing going on. They submit that story in. It goes to an editor. The editor might have questions. They might say, hey, I need more about this. They can do some cleanup. There's meanwhile photography generally going on, or that has gone on. So that's coming in from either one of our 2 staff photographers, or probably 4 to 5, something like that, 3 to 5 freelance photographers that we have working for us at any given time. So that's all coming together with the editor and what's called the digital desk, and digital producers. Then when you see that story reel finished with the photos placed and related links and a little call out box and a Gantt chart and graph and so on, and then that goes up on the site. And then they, in combination with the editors, are picking which ones go out. Is this breaking news? Will this go out as a lunchtime read? Where is it placed in the morning edition, the email that 60,000 people get every day, or in the afternoon edition? And any of the 30 something, it's probably way more than that now, but it's at least 30 something newsletters that we send out either daily, weekly, ad hoc, monthly. And then there's also people who subscribe to things like, if you love Jeff Calkins and you want to get his articles emailed to you right when they're published, you can do that with Jeff, with Bill, with Chris Harrington. It's all on the dailymemphian.com/email. So that's the structure, is how all that works. We also have a lot of freelancers, writing freelancers who contribute either very regularly or just on an ad hoc basis. And then we have opinion columns and guest columns that are submitted. Most of those right now go through me, not all of them, but many of them. And again, like I said at the top, people are welcome to, always welcome to reach out to me about guest columns on all kinds of topics. They aren't all political by any stretch, as I think if you're an avid reader or a regular reader, you have seen. That gets into another question that people ask, why do the same stories appear for several days on the website or the newsletters? It is a quandary that we really have, I wouldn't say struggled with. It's just the reality of web publishing is that our most avid readers see the articles in the morning. They see them all, read every one word for word, think about them, study them, share them with friends. No, but they see them all and they read many of them. But not everyone does. And a story of importance or a story that's garnered a lot of interest or a story for whatever, all these kind of interrelated good reasons, we want to make sure we get that out in front of people as best we can. And so we'll put it in, that's why it'll maybe go out in the afternoon again. That's why it'll stay on the site. It might be in the one spot or the top spot, as we call it, or, somewhere and moving around. And then it might go in a week in review, kind of a business, Bluff City Biz, which is the week in business, or the About Town, which is the week in neighborhoods coverage. And so it is repetitive to some degree. And for avid readers, it can be frustrating, and we get that. But not everyone's as avid a reader. And so we want to make sure we expose this content to people. And so it's a constant balancing act. Let me say a couple of things. One is you can tailor the emails you get. And so if you go to that dailymemphian.com/email page, you can pick and choose which ones you get. Sometimes people are worried that if they unsubscribe from some emails, they've unsubscribed from Daily Memphian. You haven't. The emails are separate from your paid subscription for the most part. But if you're getting too much from us, go there. You'll see which ones you're signed up for, and you can pick and choose which ones you're signed up for and which ones you're not signed up for. So if you're really into business and you don't get Bluff City Biz, you should sign up for that, the to-do list, like Danielle said, or one of us said, and so on. So there's that. Then from a technical point of view, we are working on, it's probably months away to be realistic, a way of giving subscribers a tailored experience where you can click here for all the stories you haven't read in the last 24 hours and only those stories. And then even then you could filter it. I only want to see the sports stories I haven't read in the last 24 hours. That's very technically doable, imperfect, because technology is imperfect. And that is something we've started looking at and started pulling those pieces together to get that done. But it will be months away, and we will let you know when that's there.
Can I
other
jump
stuff?
in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there was, like, related to this question, there was someone that said, could I only get just new emails so that I'm not kind of flooded? So I did want to just point out a couple of newsletters. If you want kind of just one thing, there's always breaking news. You can always get a breaking news alert. And if you're on that list, sometimes we will send pushes for particular, like, new articles of that day. So that's a good way to kind of get what's new. And I also want to plug our great On Demand, because somebody on the YouTube is talking about, I hope you know who you have in Chris Harrington. We definitely do. Chris Harrington's wonderful, as is the rest of our staff. So there are the big gun on demands, your Jeff Calkins, your Chris Harringtons, Bill Drees. But there are some new on demands that I think, if you're interested in really particular topics, are great. So if you don't know, Keely Brewer is with us from in partnership with Report for America. And she is, I believe, the first time our newsroom has ever had someone reporting specifically on an environmental beat. So you can sign up for Keely Brewer on demand, and you're going to get, if that's something you're passionate about or want to learn more about, you're going to get, or Aisling Maki, I hope I said that right. Aisling Maki is reporting specifically on healthcare. And she's not necessarily new to the Memphis reporting world, but if you want to get to know her, if you already know her, or you just want to learn more about healthcare, we also have Laura Faith Keebity, who would be more of a social justice, criminal justice reform, prison reform, if that's the kind of thing you want to learn. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of email preferences, there's some great on demands, and we hope to have some more.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. And again, for those who came in late, Danielle Smith is our social media manager, and helps with all kinds of things, but is our social media manager. A couple of questions that have come in on the YouTube channel. And then again, people coming in late, you can click on the YouTube icon in the video and you'll go over and there's a chat function there. Why doesn't the Daily Memphian hire stringers to cover more local high school sports? John Varlas is great, and he's the hardest working man in rock and roll. But he can only be one place one time. We have talked about that. We actually had plans brewing right before COVID to add our stringers, and honestly, a lot of it comes back to money. This is expensive. And it gets, somebody asked a question about our model. One thing is we are a nonprofit. We try to run this like a business, but business-wise, we are structured as a nonprofit. So a lot of our numbers come out. And so I can tell you, we're growing to about a $5.5 million budget every year. It's a lot of money. As I said at the top, local news is kind of broken. I mean, there've been tremendous, and it's broken for a reason. It's just the business model behind it fell apart. The advertising, the print advertising, basically there was a 15 to 20 year fever dream where all news was made free. I love free news. I hated when everybody started putting up paywalls. I spent a lot more money on news, national and local, than I used to. But I can tell you from a pure spreadsheet business point of view, you can't support a newsroom of 43 people without paid subscriptions. I mean, there are a couple of exceptions in the country. Texas Tribune is one where they have a big newsroom. And actually, I was just meeting with them. We have a bigger newsroom than Texas Tribune. That's not bragging. It just kind of blew me away. And they are sort of they're 10, 12 years old as a nonprofit, totally free, statewide news site, and have done amazing work. But it comes down to money on some of these things. And so the high school sports stringers, what we had talked to some groups about, some advertisers about, potential sponsors, is sponsoring expanded high school news section. That is still on the table. We want to get back to that. We've invested some technology, our cool football ticker, sports ticker, high school. Look for it tomorrow if you're into high school sports. And so we would like to expand it. We just have to find that funding to support it. I mean, we have to run this like a business. I would love to run it purely as, what do people want, and what would be fun to do, and what would be interesting to do. Based on the comments I get in the grocery store, we should have a gardening section. I don't think the gardening section would really pay for itself. And so those are the kind of constant back and forth, imperfect decisions that we're kind of sorting through. Somebody asked about Redbirds, and it's the same thing. We actually, for our first year and a half after launch, we covered, I think, pretty much every Redbirds game. We had extensive Redbirds coverage. I mean, I hate saying this because I'm not anti-baseball. I love the Redbirds as an organization. And the same thing happened with the soccer team, 901 FC. I mean, we tried it for a year. We really didn't get the traction that would justify continuing to spend that kind of money. And I hate that, but that's kind of the harsh reality of some of this. Other questions?
Yeah, I've got some other questions too, actually, that come in. So you've kind of referenced this a little bit talking about print, but we did receive a question of, has the Daily Memphian ever considered becoming having a print edition? And we also have received some just now that are kind of like, what is the status of daily prints? Is that in decline in Memphis? And I guess too, as well, why is Daily Memphian digital? Why was that decision made 4 years ago?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. We wanted to do a print edition, and when we were cooking this thing up and working on this, so if we launched and again, we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary, so my brain is a bit in the past on this stuff. And we should link to it in the article. I'll try to remember to link to it. There's a podcast that Andy Cates and I did. Andy being my friend and one of the co-founders of this thing, and now the board chair, that we did a podcast, I think at our 1-year anniversary, in which actually I need to go back and listen to, because, you forget all these details, but we walk through just kind of how it all went. But one thing was a print edition. We really wanted a print edition. But we also knew it'd be really expensive. I've been in print one way or another I've been in publishing for 30 years now, and much of that in print, and magazines, books, newspapers and so on. And I remember Andy said, well, what if we just did a monthly or a weekly, free edition maybe, or something like that. Some people remember I used to be associated with what was called the Memphis News, which was a free weekly newspaper here in Memphis that was, had a nice niche kind of readership. It was not the Daily Memphian. It was a very different thing. And the way this would work is Andy and I would talk really, really fast and really, really loud after drinking a lot of coffee, and go through all these kind of ideas. And I would sort of get, all right, let me go try to put those ideas to numbers in a spreadsheet and what's sustainable and what we think we can do. And so the next day I'd send that to him. And we go back and forth. And he was doing so much. And we just back and forth every day. And so there was a day he talked about print. And I said, give me a day and I'm going to send you the print thing. And, to do a print weekly tabloid size, maybe 30 to 40,000 free copies put around, which I think 99% of them, 90% would get picked up. And would reach people we otherwise don't reach and would point people back to the site. I mean, it'd be great. The cost, I remember Andy going, oh yeah, take that out. I mean, it was so much money. And the reality is that it's very difficult to sell advertising. The only way you're going to support that, it gets back to the business, which is the sort of sad part of this journalistic endeavor, is that it comes back to money. This is not a volunteer organization, and it shouldn't be for what we do and the time and effort that everybody puts into it. So we took the print out. It's just too expensive. Every once in a while, the idea comes back up. I think about how great it would be because we would reach so many people that we otherwise wouldn't reach. It'd be a great form of promotion and reaching out to people and teasing them, and I don't mean that in an ugly way, but I don't see it happening. It's just so expensive and difficult to print and lay out, print, distribute all those copies. What else are we getting here? I'm going to jump around. What's our time check here? Okay. Some of these, that print thing brings into a couple questions we got before this, which was Daily Memphian has grown and evolved since the start. How do you see us growing in the future? And then another separate but related question, what do you see for the future of local news? It's such a vital lifeline to have a trusted local voice. How do we get back to agreeing on a set of facts nationally? And how do we combat misinformation? Let me take the future of local news stuff. There's some bright spots in that there are a lot of new news organizations like the Daily Memphian launching around the country. Oddly enough, this was never our plan to be the biggest of our type in the country, purely locally focused, one city, not a whole state, with a broad-based mission, from high school sports to food to arts and culture, not enough, arts and culture, obviously politics and local government, business, neighborhoods, a really broad mission. Until 4 months ago, when the Baltimore Banner launched, we were far and away the biggest in the country. Again, that's not an ego thing. It wasn't really our intention. We just looked at it and said, if we're going to do this right, we got to cover the whole, the fun stuff, the tough stuff, the important stuff, everything in between. And so Baltimore Banner is launched. They're a little bit bigger than us, and they're great. And I just saw them somewhere, and they're some of their editor and CEO and stuff. And I hope, for the sake of the country and for democracy and for news, that there are more organizations like us. We're not going to launch those. Every once in a while, I get somebody say, oh, you should bring that somewhere. I say, no, I'm not doing that. But we do talk to people. I talk to people all the time from other cities, and we share ideas about things we've done right, all the things we've done wrong, and that we would do differently. And I'm involved in various news, conferences and association of media and news companies, and try to share all those ideas and learn from others, because local news is in the process of being remade very dramatically. I think that, in the meantime, the future isn't great. The biggest owner of local newspapers in the country, Gannett, just announced another round of layoffs. That's not me passive aggressively picking on the Commercial Appeal. They're owned by Gannett. The folks over at the Commercial Appeal are great, do a great job. I want Memphis to have more local journalists, not less. Whenever I ran into Mark Russell, the editor over there the other day at a coffee shop, and, complimented a bunch of work he had done. And that's great. And it's good for Memphis to have this competition. We are a unique city in that, and it speaks to the best parts of Memphis, that the city is actually supporting so many local news organizations. And that's good, from us to the CA, to the Business Journal, to the Flyer, Memphis Magazine, MLK 50, High Ground News, Chalkbeat has a presence here. I apologize to those I have left out. Storyboard Memphis, Tri-State Defender. That's unique. That's not typical. And that speaks to Memphis really valuing there are these stories to tell, and there is this love for this city with all its imperfections. And again, apologies to the publications that I left out in that. I don't mean to. That's unique, and that's not typical. And, I talk to people in cities of the same size or bigger that have one daily paper that has maybe 15 reporters. 15 in the newsroom. So that's probably 10 reporters. And that's, that's really sad and that's really difficult. So it's not a great picture. If you look and you take out the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Financial Times, the big nationals, Politico, Axios, that's a different business. That's not this. That's not what we do. And so I wish it looked brighter. I think the Daily Memphian's future looks bright. We've continued to raise, really significant money because of amazing donors and amazing subscribers and advertisers, and who understand that what we do is important and who are entertained and interested and see what we do is important. So I think our future is bright, but it's a very difficult industry, and I worry about it in other cities. And I think that's why I get calls very often from other cities saying, hey, we're worried and we think we're going to lose our paper. And there's a good chance they will. And they're going to have to launch something that does this, that fills these gaps. In terms of, that idea of the trusted local source and misinformation. Again, the misinformation thing is back to why we turn off comments on particular things and try to moderate our comments. We try to have, I always said, I still say it, but I said it when we launched, local news didn't fail. What failed was the business model that supported it, right? Print advertising, classifieds, subscriptions, all that kind of stuff failed completely. And, but core journalistic principles, yeah, we put it online. Yeah, we post it to Facebook. Yeah, we're on YouTube right now, but it's really not that different than what journalists were doing when I came out of college and was a reporter at the Old Saybrook Pictorial Gazette many, many years ago. It's not that different. You've got to have a couple sources. You've got to be fair. You've got to be as objective as you can. You've got to follow up. You've got to own your mistakes. And that's critically important. And I think the fact that we are so locally based that, we get those of us whose faces are on things get recognized in the coffee shops and the grocery store, and people can email me and I'm right here. All of us live in Memphis, we're of Memphis. That matters a lot, right? We're writing about our hometown where, I raised my kids here. And so I think that's a big part of how we combat the distrust. I was just speaking to a church group today, and I speak to church groups, and so does Jeff and Jennifer Biggs and others. And that's just being part of the community sounds kind of trite, but it maybe a little duh, but that's not the case in a lot of communities. A lot of their media is not in and of the community in the way it needs to be.
Eric, how can people, if they want to invite you or someone to speak at the organization, how do they do that?
Speak to my agent. No, you just email me, barnes@dailymemphian.com. It's on the site as well. Contact us. And if I can't do it, I try to say yes to everything. And if I can't do it, I'll try to find somebody here who can. And we like doing that. Not because it's self-aggrandizing or something, but because we want to spread the word. Today I was at a church group and probably 50, 60 people there. And it was great. I got lots of comments. You get lots of feedback. It's awesome to talk to subscribers, not by email and not by angry comments or not by, social media posts, but there was criticism and there was thanks. And there was both from the same people. And that's all awesome. So yeah, just reach out. And that actually relates to somebody said, how does a nonprofit organization pitch a story to the Daily Memphian? Email me. Email Mary Casciola. Find the editor. It's a sports story. David Boyd's our sports editor. It's all on the site on the contact us page. Email a reporter. Know that we are flooded with story ideas and know that, we're it's not nothing personal. If we don't get back to you, it's fine to email a couple times. Please don't email like 10 times in a day. But let us know about great story ideas and things that are happening. Maybe it's not a story we're going to do, but maybe it's a letter to the editor. Maybe it's a opinion piece, a guest column. All those things we want to hear from people. And again, just, apologies in advance if we're a little bit slow, but it's nothing other than there are an overwhelming number of great stories, important, fun, difficult, all that to do. And it just takes some time. And as big as our newsroom is, keep in mind, 20 years ago, the Commercial Appeal, this is not me picking on them. It's at all. It's just the nature of things. 20 years ago, they had a newsroom of 250 in Memphis, right? And I've talked to folks who were there then, and all they could say then was, we didn't have enough people to get to all the stories we wanted to do. That's just the nature of things.
And I will say too, like, thank you to everybody that sends in, messages and DMs and all those things. I do read everything and try to respond to as many of you as I can. And we have had stories come directly from those messages. So it really is appreciated. And I wanted to ask you too, Eric, when you talked about print possibly, definitely reaching individuals in Memphis that a digital paper doesn't, what are some ways that nonprofits and schools and libraries can access us if you are a nonprofit out there?
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. That's a great point. I mean, that, our because of the financial necessities I talked about, we charge a fair rate, and we appreciate that people pay, $107 a year or $13 a month. I mean, that's not inconsiderable. And there are a lot of other publications out there that charge $1 a month or that kind of stuff. They're not really making any money on that, I can assure you. We need to make, a meaningful rate while also having it be a fair rate, right? I can't remember what I pay for the Wall Street Journal. It's insane. I'm not saying it's not fair. It's just, we're not at that level. But we've always committed to doing the best we can to get free access to people who can't pay for the Daily Memphian. And so we are free in all the schools that we've been able to make contact with. It's about 80 or 85% of the schools in town. I think most of the schools that they're more elementary schools, and it just didn't make sense for them because we're not able to filter and all that. That's public, private, charter, county, city, suburban schools. And if your school is not free, just contact me, email me. We give free access to a lot of community organizations, nonprofits. We're happy to talk to you about that. It is very, very easy for us to make the Daily Memphian free in a building or a location. It's a little more difficult for us to give individual free access, but we can work with you on that. So if you're working, if you work for a nonprofit community organization where, it's folks who just can't afford the news, we want to work with you and make that happen. Maybe you're on a board, maybe you have a family or friend who works with somebody, just contact me and we'll do the best we can to try to get free access to people. That's part of one of the nice things about being a nonprofit is that is part of our mission. I've got a series of questions from Joe Kent in the chat. Joe is a valued subscriber and a kind of critic of local government, local business community. Joe will tell me if I've unfairly characterized him. We've covered, it's all in the chat. If you go to the YouTube, the questions that Joe is asking, I think it's under Path Trek here. I'm not trying to box Joe out. We've covered, I think we can always do better. What Joe's asking for, and you can look at the specific questions, is, accountability of various organizations. And that's incredibly important for us. And we've done more and more of that. It has taken time. It's, none of this is easy. That's not making excuses. It's just making excuses. But I think that if you look at the work we've done around, the rape kit backlog, that is just a tragedy for so many people, that we put that out, in the last week. We do that not to vilify the police or the TBI or the people responsible, but to say that we need them to do better at every level, as Otis said today in his column. That's part of what we do. Again, I mentioned the school system, that we've done stories there, and we'll continue to do stories there. That's an incredibly important organization in terms of Memphis being able to move forward. And if there are people at the highest level there that aren't exhibiting the right behavior, and it's not just inappropriate, it's a culture that isn't about education, we're gonna expose that. And we've written about other businesses who've been sued, who've been called to task, and where it's fair and where it's justified and where we have good sources, we'll write about those things. There's not a story we're afraid to write about. I think sometimes people get confused that we should have an opinion that we don't like a particular group's agenda. That's not, I may have a personal opinion about that. We all might over here, but that's not our role. Our role is to write about the agenda that the chamber comes out with, or the mayor comes out with, or the things that a given business does, and then say, did they do what they promised they would do? How did it work out? Do we do that on every business? No. every politician know, every government agency know, we're trying. And so we do have to pick and choose what we write about and try to do our best on that. Other questions in the chat here. I think we're getting there, Danielle.
I think we are.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just was gonna say,
We had questions around some enhancements around an app that would read the Daily Memphian for the visually impaired, and integration with home assistants like Google Assistant, Alexa, Siri would probably be in there. It's on the list. I mean, we'd love to have a listen to this article button on the app, and it's on the list. I can't say that it's going to happen anytime soon. I mean, it's all expensive. It all takes time. Technology takes time, but I think we'll get there. And integration with the home assistants. Oof, that's on the list. It will be today or tomorrow. That will be on the list any day now. And I'll be honest, it's just going to take time. This stuff is not simple. It looks simple. I mean, when we're at our best, these stories read clean. They're well-sourced, they're informative, they have great photos, there are links to the stories you want, and it looks seamless and easy. And I can tell you there's just a huge amount of work that goes in behind that on the journalism side, on the promotion and audience and getting it out there, the work Danielle does on many levels. And then the back end technology is just so much more complicated than you think. Or not you think, that's not a nice way to say that, but that I think many people realize. It's just, even though I realize sometimes when I'm really in the fray of us getting stories up, it's more complicated than it looks, and the technology takes more time. So if people missed any of this, I think we're going to start winding down. But if people missed, again, it's barnes@dailymemphian.com. And if you have thoughts, comments, questions, just email me. We're right here. And again, be patient. If it takes me a minute to get back to you, I apologize, but I will try. You can always email editors and reporters that are listed on our contact us page. If you missed any of this, if you tuned in late today, this will be on the Daily Memphian site and the YouTube channel. It'll replay, and you can study every word I said and every mistake and weird face I made, and you can do that. Danielle, any other thoughts as we wrap this up?
I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for sending in all of these great questions. I know we couldn't get to all of them today, but there were some specific story ideas. I have sent that to our editorial team, and a lot of just really great ideas of like user experience and things for the future. So I just wanted I wanted to say that we are definitely reading all of them, and we'll take note of them if we didn't address it today. So thank you so much for participating with us and watching with us. This has been really great.
Yeah, and thank you, Danielle, for helping out on this and helping to set this up and solicit questions. And we'll it seems like there's enough interest. We'll do this again. It might be right before the holidays, it might be right after, but we'll try to do this on a more regular basis. I should do some self-promotion. We have a journalism circle event, which is for donors. You can learn more about that by going to the site, Daily Memphian About, and there's a link to a journalism circle. We have seminars coming up, business seminars. We have one about developing Memphis, various projects going on around the Memphis community, and a commercial real estate one down the road. Again, if you somehow got in here as a non-subscriber, please do subscribe. If you're interested enough to watch this, you ought to subscribe. And again, you can customize all your emails at dailymemphian.com/email. Again, thanks for watching, and thanks for being here.